My son sent me to a nursing home because he said I was a burden, so I gave him a real burden. They say a mother's love knows no bounds. I believed that for 73 years. I believed it through sleepless nights, empty dinner plates, and a wedding ring I pawned to buy my son's graduation suit. But sometimes, dear friends, love isn't enough to soften a heart that's already turned to stone. My name is Dorothy, and this is the story of how my only child threw me away like yesterday's newspaper, and how I reminded him that some things refuse to stay buried. Let me take you back to the beginning, when Jason was just a chubby-cheeked boy who called me his best friend. After his father passed when Jason was only 12, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked 3 jobs to keep our lights on. I scrubbed office floors until my knees screamed for mercy. I skipped more meals than I cared to count, telling Jason I'd already eaten when the truth was there wasn't enough for both of us. When the rent came due and we were $50 short, I'd walk to the pawn shop with trembling hands, trading pieces of my past for his future. You mothers out there, you know that ache, don't you? That hollow feeling in your stomach that isn't just hunger, but the weight of loving someone more than you love yourself. I never asked for gratitude. Never kept a running tab of sacrifices. I just loved him the way mothers do, completely, unconditionally, foolishly. I thought that love would come back to me when I needed it most. How wrong I was. The warning signs started small, the way they always do. After Jason married Danielle, the weekly phone calls became monthly. Then monthly became holidays only. When I'd call, I could hear her in the background, that sharp whisper that cuts through a conversation like a blade. Tell her we're busy. We don't have time for this. She needs to understand we have our own lives now. But Jason was a good boy, I told myself. He was just adjusting to married life. All sons grow distant when they find wives. That's natural, isn't it? That's what I kept telling myself during those long, quiet evenings in the house that once echoed with his laughter. The house, oh, that house. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where I taught him to scramble eggs. The living room where we'd watch cartoons on Saturday mornings after his father died, both of us pretending everything was still okay. The front porch where I'd wait for him to come home from school, no matter how late my shift had run. That house was more than walls and windows. It was 25 years of love made tangible. The morning that changed everything started like any other. I was standing at the kitchen counter, making my usual breakfast of toast and coffee, when the world suddenly tilted. The room spun like a carnival ride, and the next thing I knew, I was staring at the ceiling, my hips screaming in pain. It was just low blood sugar. That's what I told myself. That's what I told the paramedics. I'd been working in the garden all morning on an empty stomach, of course I felt faint. But Jason saw opportunity where I saw an accident. That evening, he arrived with Danielle, both wearing expressions I'd never seen before. Concern mixed with something else. Something calculating. "Mom," Jason said, settling onto my couch like he was delivering a eulogy, "Danielle and I have been talking. This episode today, it's a wake-up call. You're not safe living alone anymore." Safe? I'd been living alone for 15 years. I'd survived breast cancer alone. I'd weathered 3 hurricanes alone. I'd rebuilt my life from nothing alone. But suddenly, after one dizzy spell, I wasn't safe. "We want to help you get your affairs in order," Danielle added, her voice honey-sweet with false compassion. "Make sure everything's settled." Settled. Like I was already in the ground. Over the next week, they visited every day. Always with casseroles I didn't ask for and documents I didn't understand. Power of attorney forms. Healthcare directives. Bank account transfers. "It's just paperwork, Mom," Jason would say when I hesitated. "In case something happens." But something was already happening, wasn't it? I just couldn't see the snare tightening around my ankles. They brought neighbors over, neighbors who suddenly seemed worried about my confusion and forgetfulness. Funny how I'd never seemed confused to them before. Mrs. Henderson from next door actually had the nerve to pat my hand and say, "We all get a little mixed up as we age, dear." Mixed up? I balanced my checkbook to the penny every month. I remembered every birthday, every anniversary, every doctor's appointment. But suddenly, I was mixed up because Jason needed me to be. The lies spread like wildfire through our small neighborhood. "Poor Dorothy," they whispered. "She's slipping. Did you hear about the fall? They say she's been having episodes." Episodes. As if my entire life had become a medical condition to be managed. The final betrayal came wrapped in a bow of false kindness. "Let's go to lunch," Jason suggested on a Tuesday morning. Just the three of us. Our treat. I should have known. Looking back, should have seen the guilt in his eyes, the way Danielle wouldn't meet my gaze. But hope makes us blind sometimes, doesn't it? I thought maybe, just maybe, my son was coming back to me. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't bring my medications. I wore my everyday shoes, not expecting to walk into my worst nightmare. The restaurant wasn't a restaurant. It was a driveway leading to a building with beige walls and plastic flowers in the lobby. The kind of place where dreams go to die. "Just for a few days," Jason said, his voice cracking like ice under pressure. "You need rest, Mom. Real rest." The nurse who took my arm was kind but firm. She handed me a clipboard with my name already filled in, my fate already decided. Jason had signed everything. Medical consent, residential admission, long-term care authorization. Long-term. As if I was already gone. I turned to look at my son one last time. This man I'd carried in my body, nursed through fevers, cheered at baseball games, sacrificed everything for. He stood there in that sterile lobby, hat in his hands, looking everywhere except at me. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. "But love doesn't lock you away. Love doesn't forge your signature on documents you never saw. Love doesn't steal your life while calling it mercy. That wasn't love. That was convenience. That was greed. That was a son who'd forgotten that the woman he was discarding had given him everything she had. My room at Shady Pines had white walls, a narrow bed, and a window that looked out onto a courtyard where lost souls wandered in circles. Some talked to people who weren't there. Others stared at nothing, their minds having fled to kinder places. Is this what I'd become to Jason? Just another confused old woman taking up space? The first night, I lay in that unfamiliar bed listening to someone crying down the hall, and I made myself a promise. I wouldn't fade away quietly. I wouldn't become another forgotten face in a hallway full of abandoned parents. I still had my mind. I still had my rights. And I still had something Jason had forgotten about. I still had fight. The next morning, I asked for a pen and paper. The nurse thought I wanted to write letters, maybe journal about my feelings. Instead, I started documenting everything. Account numbers, property deeds, legal documents, the name of my attorney who hadn't heard from me in years but had never dropped me as a client. Monica Reeves. A fighter who'd helped me through my divorce decades ago. If anyone would listen, it would be Monica. While Jason thought I was rotting away in that facility, I was building a case. While he counted his chickens before they hatched, I was preparing to clip his wings. Monica Reeves' law office. My hands shook as I held the phone. 3 days I'd waited for phone privileges. 3 days of watching my son's lies spread like poison through my family. Monica, this is Dorothy Mayfield. I believe my son has committed fraud using my name and placed me in a facility against my will. The silence stretched for eternity. Then, Dorothy? Are you safe? Safe. What a loaded word. Was I safe in a place where I'd been dumped like garbage? Where I was medicated without consent and treated like a problem to be managed? As safe as a woman can be when her only child decides she's better off buried alive. Monica's voice hardened with professional fury. Tell me everything. So I did. Every forged signature, every lie to neighbors, every stolen piece of my independence. Monica listened with the intensity of a prosecutor building a murder case. Dorothy, she said finally, we're getting you out of there. And then we're going to make sure this never happens to you, or anyone else, again. Monica didn't just practice law, she wielded it like a sword of justice. Within 48 hours, she'd filed emergency motions, demanded capacity evaluations, and frozen every account Jason thought he controlled. The facility's own doctor confirmed what I'd known all along. I was completely competent. No dementia, no cognitive decline, no confusion. Just a woman whose son had decided convenience mattered more than conscience. The forged power of attorney? Invalid. The medical consent forms? Fraudulent. The property transfer Jason had started? Illegal. One by one, Monica dismantled the lies Jason had built like a house of cards in a hurricane. But we weren't done. Oh no, we were just getting started. I walked out of Shady Pines on a Wednesday afternoon, and the sunshine on my face felt like resurrection. Jason didn't know I was free yet, that surprise was coming. But first, we had property to discuss. You see, Jason had forgotten something important. That house he was living in so comfortably. The one he'd changed the locks on and filled with his new life. It was still in my name. Only my name. Monica filed a partition suit faster than Jason could blink. Since he was living in property he didn't own, without the owner's consent, we had every legal right to force a sale. Every legal right. The process server found them at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. According to Monica's contact, Danielle screamed. Jason turned white as a sheet and slammed the door. But you can't slam the door on justice. It has a way of finding its way in anyway. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number, but I knew that trembling voice. Mom, we got papers today. This can't be real. Oh, it's real, Jason. As real as the nursing home you dumped me in. But, this is my house. Our house. Your house. I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. Son, you never owned that house. You just lived in it while I was gone. But I'm back now. You can't be serious. You're going to make us homeless? Homeless. The irony was almost perfect. You made me homeless first, Jason. You threw me away like I was nothing. Like the woman who raised you, who sacrificed everything for you, who loved you more than life itself, like I was just a burden to be discarded. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. You have 30 days, I continued. Same amount of time you gave me to disappear from my own life. Click. The house sold quickly to a young couple with stars in their eyes and love in their hearts. The same love I'd once poured into those walls. They promised to fill it with laughter again, and that was all I needed to hear. With the proceeds from the sale, I did something Jason never saw coming. I bought the house next door. Right next door. Where I could sit on my porch every morning with my coffee and my newspaper, waving at neighbors, tending my garden, living my life in full view of the son who tried to erase me. Some people called it petty. I called it poetry. Every morning, Jason would step outside to collect his mail, and there I'd be. Proof that you can't bury someone who refuses to stay dead. Evidence that love betrayed doesn't always turn to hate, sometimes it turns to something far more powerful. Justice. Danielle left within a month. Couldn't handle the embarrassment of what I'd done. Couldn't face the neighbors who now knew the truth about what they'd tried to do to me. Tyler, my grandson, started spending more time at my place. Turns out, he'd never believed I was confused. He'd just been a kid caught in the middle of adults who'd forgotten how to be human. "Grandma," he said one afternoon while we planted tomatoes, "I'm sorry for what Dad did. It's not your fault, sweetheart. Your father made his choices. Now he gets to live with them." And live with them he did. Every single day, as he watched me thrive in the house next door. As neighbors stopped by to chat with me instead of him. As the whole community learned what kind of man abandons his mother in her time of need. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But this wasn't revenge, this was restoration. This was reclaiming my name, my dignity, my right to exist on my own terms. Jason never apologized. Not really. He made excuses, justified his actions, blamed his wife, blamed circumstances, blamed everything except his own choices. But that's okay. I wasn't waiting for his apology anymore. I was too busy living. I established the Dorothy Mayfield Foundation for Elder Justice, funded by the very money Jason thought he'd inherit. We help seniors fight financial abuse, provide legal aid for nursing home cases, and make sure no other parent gets thrown away like I was. Tyler comes by every day after school now. We cook together, garden together, talk about his grandfather he never got to meet. I'm teaching him that family isn't just blood, it's choice, commitment, and showing up when it matters. And Jason? He still lives next door, still pretends not to see me, still carries the weight of what he did like a stone in his chest. Some mornings, I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. Then I remember that nursing home room. I remember the fear, the confusion, the betrayal. I remember being called a burden by the person I loved most in this world. And I water my roses and wave at my neighbors and live my life out loud, because that's what survivors do. We don't just endure, we thrive. To every mother, every father, every grandparent listening, remember your worth. You are not a burden. You are not disposable. You are not invisible just because you've collected some wrinkles and gray hairs along the way. You built lives, raised children, sacrificed dreams, and poured love into ungrateful hearts. That has value. That has meaning. That deserves respect. If someone in your family is making you feel like you're too much trouble, too expensive, too inconvenient, that's their failing, not yours. You have rights. You have options. You have more strength than you know. Don't let them bury you before you're ready to be buried. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to disappear. My name is Dorothy, and I'm still here. Still fighting. Still proving that you can't keep a good woman down. Not even when that woman is 73 years old and allegedly confused.